Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the BBB podcast. Here with me, Andrew, is none other than the other half of BBB, Stephen. You all right, mate?
Hello, mate. I'm good. Thanks. Good to be back again. Aye. Nice to be here. Nice to be talking boxing again. Putting a bit of time aside.
We've got a lot to try and pack in. He's just set us a little 45-minute deadline. We're going to see how we can stick to that. There's a lot to go through, mainly this week, as we are on Wednesday, the 5th of May. Billy Joe Saunders is going over to America to challenge Saul Canelo Alvarez. Apparently, we'll see on Saturday night / Sunday morning whether that fight still goes ahead. We're right in the middle of Ringgate, as I'm sure it will be known. Want to sum up what's going on over there and give us some of your thoughts on it?
My initial thought yesterday, and it still is that it's just a play straight out of the Fury playbook of. You know, it reminded me of Klitschko Fury when it was the surface of the ring. I think that time that was the issue. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me at all if Tyson's went, right, this is what you want to do, Billy. Fight week. Get them, you know what I mean? Find something to complain about, just anything that upsets Canelo and the team and just takes them out of their stride a bit. Honestly, if it's not pre-planned, I'll be amazed. You know, I can see the reasons that you would say that, yeah, Billy Joe wants a bigger ring because that's his style and Canelo would want a smaller ring. I get all that, but to me, I find it hard to take anything, you know, more seriously than just a fight week mind game. That's all it is. From the Saunders camp, who maybe, you know, similar to Fury when he went over to fight Klitschko, I think, you know, they're the underdog, the B-side, the plucky underdog, just ruffle a few feathers. I've got no doubt that the fight will happen. That's, you know, and I think that's all it is, just a straight play out of that book, very similar to what happened in Munich that time. I was at Dusseldorf where
I'd seen a tweet someone put like memories of Dusseldorf, and I hadn't actually made that link initially, but then watching it unfold and listening to it and reading about it, it's just, as you say, it just stinks of it, doesn't it? It's part and parcel. It's all like the mind games, and I don't doubt for one moment that Saunders would prefer a bigger ring. It would help him move. It would help him fight his natural style of fight, but I can't believe that sort of thing hasn't been specified in the contract already. Like, if it hasn't, and that's been left out, then obviously it's a massive potential sticking point. And if it is in the contract, then he's obviously got no leg to stand on. He said, well, like, you can't argue with what they've signed and agreed to. If they've said, oh, it needs to be between this and this, like, it's going to be up to Team Canelo, essentially. I'm not going into all A side, B side, but Canelo is the draw here. He's the champion. He's the man at that division. Like, he is ultimately in the position where he can dictate these terms to opponents. And Saunders may not like it. He may genuinely want that bigger rig. But I agree with you. I think it's just something to kick up a bit of a fuss. Try and let Team Canelo know that, you know, we're not going to be messed about. We're here to win. We're not just here to roll over for you. And it's no more than that for me, to be honest. I think, as you said, the fight's going to happen. There's no way if Saunders is walking away over this. And if he does, I'd be absolutely amazed. I'd be absolutely staggered if this fight falls apart now because of that.
It's funny though, because like, when you look back at the Fury one and you listen to interviews like years later and you read his book and that, like, they all maintain, like, whether that's Tyson, Peter, whoever, that they were ready to, like, this it was an issue, and they were saying, like, if it wasn't for, like, Mick Hennessy and people sorted it out and someone else close to the Fury camp, then they would have walked. But I don't know. I just, you know, another day has passed.
I think there's probably an element of it that they would. I think to people like us, it seems a bit daft. It seems a bit just for sort of the public image and, like what we've said, the mind games and trying to unsettle Canelo a bit. But if they're so passionate about it and they believe so strongly, like, they possibly would. Like, even Saunders now, like, he always strikes me as the type who's not necessarily, like, needs boxing. He obviously loves it. He's very good at it, but he's been so inactive recently, and it's like he dips in and out almost, and it just comes to that point where, you know, he thinks, well, yeah, maybe, like, I'm a man of principle, a man of my word and all this. Like, if I'm going to say this, then I'm going to do it and I will walk away. And I know that contradicts what I've just said. Like, I do think the fight still happens, but it'll be interesting to see what the actual resolution of it is. Because, again, like, Canelo fighting in a smaller ring will favour him against Saunders. He'll be able to cut it off, like, quicker and easier and maybe fight his natural fight a bit more easily. But I don't think he's going to be bothered or rattled by it in any way. So it might be that he then just concedes that, like compromises. It's all right, well, like fine, I'll fight you in a bigger ring. And then psychologically, is that one for Saunders, like 1-0 Saunders in that regard? Does that then give him a bit of belief and a bit of confidence? And even if Canelo's not outwardly bothered by it, it's almost that little edge that Saunders is maybe trying to get here. Like you mentioned, obviously Fury and Klitschko and everything with the ring and the sort of how soft it was and stuff there, wasn't it? And the gloves, and there was loads of different things going on. But it like comes back to the infamous sauna story where Fury decided he's got like, in his own head that he's going to be in the sauna longer than Klitschko, and whether Vlad knew he was competing with him or he's just like thought, oh, I'm getting out the sauna, whatever. Like it gave Fury that little boost to think, right, I can outlast him. Yeah, like it's irrelevant. Like it's even, no one knows if like Klitschko's even competing with him there, but it's that little tiny little edge that maybe then just thought giving Fury that belief that he is going to go in and beat him. And maybe he has said something to Billy Joe, as you said, or maybe Saunders is thinking along the same lines of like, right, I can put myself above him here. I can give myself that little ever so slight advantage, and he's going to need everything he can get, to be honest, to come away with the win. So any little victory like that might play a part. I don't necessarily think it will, but you never know, it could do.
I'm sure, like, I'm sure in their heads and Team Saunders said, and I've watched snippets of interviews with his dad and that, and I'm sure they probably, as the weeks roll on, probably like try and convince themselves that actually this is a big make or break thing and this does really matter. And you think, well, shoe on the other foot, maybe if Canelo does concede and then goes and beats him in a bigger ring, then you know what I mean? It's going to make Saunders a little bit after in that week. You got your bigger ring, you still got beat. Then there's a bit of ground to give on both ways. It's hard to, I don't know. I found it hard to take it all seriously, this week, just because I don't know. It's sort of, you've got to be cynical when you've been involved as long as us and doing this. Like, is it just to get more buys on DAZN, more clicks on your internet channels, more tickets, last minute ticket sales? If any tickets are still going, I don't know. Like, it's added a bit of intrigue to what are usually the quieter days of fight week. The Tuesdays, your Wednesdays. You know what I mean? It's got people talking and
Yeah, because I think considering the magnitude of the fight and like what it is, it's like whether you like Saunders or not, you've got to rate him as a top level middleweight / super middleweight fighter, and he hasn't really proven it much over recent years. But he's a very skillful operator, and a couple of years ago, I would have semi-confidently tipped him to beat Canelo. Like I've said that in the past. Like on his day, at his peak, I think he has a style that could trouble Canelo. Whether it's enough to get the decision, I don't see him stopping Canelo by any means. Whether it would be enough to get the decision, and I'm not criticizing judges favouring Canelo there. I just mean this, like the rounds are going to be close. Canelo's going to be the aggressor. Anything like that is probably going to go to Canelo, and we've had issues with British judges as long as I can remember, so I'm not digging the judges out specifically with that. But it is going to be a big ask for Saunders to go over there and win. And I think what happened over the last couple of years and how both fighters and their careers have developed, it's a lot harder to pick Saunders now than it would have been coming off the back of the David Lemieux win, which still is seen as his best win and his best performance. And I think that says it all, really. His inactivity is going to probably weigh against him. I think Canelo's activity, the level of competition he's been in with over a regular basis in the last couple of years, has taken him onto that next level. It's lifted him up, whereas Saunders is plateaued. That's what it seems like to me, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. He's, I think we over here in the UK probably, even though I'd agree with everything you just said, I think he's massively got his work cut out. Just apart from knocking him stone cold dead, I don't really know how he's gonna win unless he like really convincingly wins rounds like every round. I don't know. I just can't.
Yeah, I think he has to win every round to win 7-5.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. But to us, it's still like you said. It feels a bit low key, but maybe that's I don't know. it's getting a bit of traction in this country, but maybe to them over there, they probably just think it's just another, all right, you know, better brick than we normally send over, but you know, like.
Yeah, but I don't know ultimately if it will play out like that. Like that's I've drifted a little bit there, almost into a fight prediction. But saying like this is a really big, significant fight in world boxing, and it's not necessarily getting that sort of hype. Like obviously they're talking about filling the stadium, aren't they, over there in Texas? Like 80,000 they're talking and stuff. Like it's going to be a huge event, and we don't really know what it's been like over there. But over here, I would say outside of the boxing world, it's not a massive thing. It's not like catching a light, whereas I had mates text me over like Ricky Atkinson, Campbell Atkinson pro, and the Conor Ben fight and things like that. And the last one, like I had mates like who aren't even that big into boxing asking me about Shannon Courtney and Ebony Bridges.
Yeah,
that probably says more about my mates than how else. But like realistically, it hasn't really caught fire, like, or caught the attention of the wider public in that regard. And like you said, the American view, the slightly cynical one, like, it's like the latest in a long line of Brits that is going in as quite a sizable underdog.
Yeah.
And you've got a few British boxing fans on Twitter and social media trying to big up Saunders' chances, same as they would have done with Liam Williams the other week against Andrade, the same that they would have done with Callum Smith when he fought Canelo. And from our point of view, you're looking at anything, it's a really good fight. It's not a 50-50 by any means, like, as Canelo is deservedly a very strong favourite for it, in my opinion. But it's a good fight. It's as good a fight that can be made for Canelo for me. You've got the likes of Benavidez, Caleb Plant, like that. They're good. There'd be good matchups. There'd be ones I'd be interested in. But at the minute, Canelo is so far above anyone in and around his weight that I've got no issue with Saunders getting the fight. And whether it proves to be entertaining or not is a different matter. But on paper, it's a very, or as competitive a fight as you can make for Canelo.
I think that's part of the issue there. Like you've summed up what I was basically going to say there, because the thing is with Canelo, it's not long ago since the Callum Smith fight. You know what I mean? And he won that so easily, so convincingly, that he probably did demonstrate that night that he is well above like a lot of people out there. He's not going to turn boring, but it's just like, I think you'd beat Saunders, I think you'd beat Plant, I think you'd beat Benavidez. Like, you know what I mean? I think he's the standout fighter in that division by a long way. And I think maybe some of the low keyness is to do with Saunders' lack of momentum coming into it. He's, you know what I mean? He's not exactly coming in off a big win or all guns blazing. He's coming in a bit like he hasn't really done much for quite a while. And I think everyone's familiar as well with Saunders' style. And maybe if he was like a bit of a knockout artist, you know, you might get a bit more excited for it. But I think it's very unlikely he's going to put Canelo on the floor. And, you know, I just think everything's stacked up against Saunders. And I think it does feel that, you know what I mean, we've been talking in the group this week, and, you know, a few people's eyeing up Canelo points or Canelo late rounds, and it feels a bit inevitable going into it, which is not to mean disrespectful to Billy Joe Saunders, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really, really hard for him. I just think, you know, and I think that, and maybe he's with a low-key undercard as well. It's all added to maybe what, until this whole Wingate thing has been a pretty, I don't want to say low-key again, because I've said it 20 times in the last 3 minutes, but just it's a bit subdued.
Underwhelming.
You know what I mean? And
yeah, and I've seen a few bits from some American fans and American people across social media criticising the undercard, as you mentioned there, and it was like a few jokes about like, oh, they're getting a taste of a UK pay-per-view level undercard, because like we've again sort of been used to it. Like either the main event's brilliant and the rest of the card suffers as a result because so much has gone into the main event, or we're getting a mediocre, less than stellar main event, looking back to like Chisora Parker, and then there's a few sort of decent matchups or decent names anyway on the undercard. And I think that's always been the sort of formula. Like if you look at, say, for example, Mayweather undercards recently, apart from Mayweather fighters like some of Badou Jack or Gervonta Davis, there's not been the depth there at all. And that's not like anything groundbreaking to have a lot of money going into a main event. And I think Canelo moving forward is going to be of that stature. Like, his fight is going to be what people are tuning in for, what people are paying for. Obviously, it's like Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Yeah.
It's a massive celebration. Like, they're paying for him to see him against whoever that is. So from the promoter's point of view, I'm going to defend Eddie Hearn here. Like, why would you invest unnecessary amounts of money into the undercard if people aren't, like, if you're paying to watch Canelo or Saunders, you're paying for that. You don't necessarily care. I know we would look down in the card and there might be some good fights to get up early for in the early hours, but there's not. So I'm going to be tuning in, wait to set me alarm for the main event, I think, this weekend.
I same, to be honest with you. You know, I've just looked at it before. I know there's a bit of British interest on there. Stephen Conway's on there, but that's a rescheduled fight. You know what I mean? That was meant to be, I think, on Joshua Pulev undercard, and it got pulled quite late, I think. You know, he's fighting Suleiman Sissoko, who is an AJ fighter, I believe. Very former good top amateur, French amateur.
Again, like, it's for those in the know, that's a good little trade fight. It's again, maybe not necessarily a 50-50, but it's a decent fight on paper. Two lads, similar level of records. They both boxed at a decent, like, domestic sort of level.
Yeah.
It'll potentially be a very, very good fight. But if you're signing up to DAZN, and you can do that by the link in our bio and on all our social media, if you're signing up to DAZN because Canelo's fighting, that's not really going to sway you one way or the other. If Kieran Conway and Sissoko in a WBA international title clash or whatever, like, I'll watch it, I'll catch up on it, but it's not moving the needle, so to speak, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's just a bit of British interest for British boxing geeks like us, really. It's, you know, there's a world title on there, Soto versus Tateyama. The little fella,
it's
you know,
it's is it like flyweight or something like that? And like, again, like, I looked at that before, and I'm not going to claim that I'm like an expert on the lower weights or those guys in particular at all, but it's one I'd probably watch. I'll catch up on at some point, and then the rest of it's essentially like prospects and opponents, isn't it? So it's not amazing.
It lost it. It did lose a really good. Well, from, you know, people in this country would think is it a fight that would have had a lot of intrigue, which was Galahad v Dickens for their world title, which is quite bizarre having that on there anyway. Galahad and Dickens in Texas is strange for two British lads going for the world title. Anyway, that's fell through. So again, a fight that, you know, if it was on, it was 50-50, and you would have probably tuned into that. But from a British point of view, we've lost that on this one. So it's not a great undercard, and maybe that hasn't helped the sort of hype around, the bigger hype around the fight. Other reasons could be, you know, as I said before, in my eyes, it's got maybe that inevitable feeling about it, who the winner's going to be, which doesn't mean I'm looking forward to it. I'm setting the alarm, I'm getting out and watching it. You know, I hope it's good. I just, you know, we've had a lot of, you know, British failures in America recently. You know, Callum Smith came up short, Luke Campbell, Liam Williams, to name a few. And I just, you know, you hope Billy Joe, it'd be amazing if he wins, but I think, as I said earlier, I think he's got his work cut out. Like,
yeah, I agree. I think the Callum Smith fight, in a way, is making me lean more towards points than a stoppage.
Yeah,
I think Canelo definitely carries power. He hits hard. He's obviously very, very skillful and accurate. He had Callum Smith basically where he wanted him for the majority of those 12 rounds.
Yeah.
And like, Smith was injured at some point in the fight as well, and he couldn't get him out there. And Smith didn't necessarily offer a lot. You could argue he was in survival mode and was happy to take those rounds. But you'd think someone maybe of Canelo's ilk, if there is an opponent just trying to get to that final bell, that he's offensively good enough to stop them. And obviously he didn't do that with Callum. In the meantime, he absolutely flattened Avni Yildirim, which means very little in the grand scheme of things. And then I think Saunders is more elusive than Smith. He can box and move, and I know it's almost cliche talking about Saunders in that way, but that's what he's good at. That's his strengths are his boxing abilities, his footwork. He can get in and out, and I don't necessarily know if he'll be able to sustain enough over 12 rounds to beat Canelo. As I said, I don't think he will. I think he'll have his moments, especially in the early rounds, when things are cautious and Canelo's maybe, what's the phrase, is like computing the data and downloading all the information, whatever Lomachenko did. I think he may well give away a few of the opening rounds and not necessarily be pushing the pace very, very early on, and Saunders take heart from that. He might get into a bit of a rhythm, but ultimately I think Canelo will suss him out pretty soon, and it's then going to be those later rounds. Does Saunders have the gas tank after his recent inactivity, and like what's he put into this camp? Hopefully he is in good shape and he can get through. But I think a wide Canelo points decision is probably the most likely outcome.
It's funny because like it's 2021 and we still really don't know that much about Saunders at super middle. Like as I said before, his lack of momentum coming into this is staggering, really. You know what I mean? Since he beat Lemieux at middle and he stepped up, shooting up against Charles Adamu, beat Shefa Asufi, Stevenage, like not great.
He got hurt in that one as well, didn't he?
Marcelo Cortez on the YouTuber undercard, Los Angeles. Martin Murray beat him, you know, as we all said, he couldn't
totally forgot about the Martin Murray fight.
Yeah. Martin Murray couldn't get him out of there, laboured a bit towards the end, and it just didn't really look $1 million that night, even though he did what he had to do and won it very comfortably.
I don't think he's a natural super middle by any means, and I think there's an argument over whether Canelo is, but Canelo obviously has the better resume at 12 stone compared to Saunders by absolute, like, it's not even comparable. And again, that recent activity at that top level just holds him in much better stead. I think everything is stacked towards Canelo, and I'm not saying that in a promotional sense. I just mean, like you said, the word there, momentum, the experience, the recent activity, which we keep harping on about because I think it's going to play such a big part in the fight.
Yeah.
Not just the fact he's been busy, but the level of opponents he's been busy with, and he's shown that he can mix it with the very elites, the top ones at 12 stone, and Saunders just hasn't done that yet. I think
I absolutely agree. Like you look at, like I've just named the last 4 fights there of Saunders, and then you look at like Canelo's last 4. It's like, oh,
I've just looked. I was going to do a quiz on this on our website.
We'll give him a pass with Yildirim, right? But Callum Smith, fully fledged super middle world champion. Kovalev, Daniel Jacobs, all right, pass with Rocky Fielding, Golovkin. Do you know what I mean? It's just like the level of opposition is even in just Callum Smith alone, like a standout super middle is, you know, more than sort of Billy Joe Saunders has done. Like, you know, Martin Murray's a middleweight and everything good name. Like,
like Saunders' best win, as we say, is Lemieux, which probably wouldn't even rank in Canelo's like top 5 best wins, best performances.
Mental, like, and you know, like, you know, as I say, give Yildirim a pass. He's a pudding. You know what I mean? But like Smith, Yildirim, Saunders in sort of 5 months, and it's quite refreshing. Do you know what I mean?
That's it. You don't mind him fighting the likes of a Yildirim or a Rocky Fielding, as you've said previously, when he's then sandwiching that in between a Callum Smith and a Billy Joe Saunders. Like, as long as he's fighting 3 or 4 times a year, which is like unheard of for some of the top boxers. You look, COVID aside, and COVID's obviously had a massive impact recently, but you look at the top boxers, generally, if they fight twice a year, you're lucky.
That's it, like, and you just, you know.
And that's when it gets frustrating that they're not necessarily fighting each other. Like, Errol Spence Crawford is sort of, Terence Crawford's one of the big ones that probably, again, doesn't look like happening stateside. And it's such a shame. But then if Spence fights like the likes of Sean Porter, which he's done, fight Danny Garcia, fight Pacquiao, whoever, like, yes, it's still frustrating, but it softens the blow somewhat when they are in with other top contenders or the champions or the top level boxers. You don't mind them then necessarily for doing that.
That's it. And the thing is with Canelo, it's like he's not, you know, he's probably going to go Billy Joe Saunders. If he wins that, he'd probably go straight into the planned fight later this year, maybe. Do you know what I mean? You think like he's not avoiding people, he's just better than them. And you think, at what point is he going to run out of fights unless he moves up again and flirts in that sort of light heavy category with Turbiev or something? Do you know what I mean?
That's what a lot of fans want him to do, and I think sometimes that gets confused with like hating, because people are sort of saying, they'll suggest that, oh, we only want Canelo to fight Turbiev or a Bivol or whoever at light heavy because they want to see him lose. And it's like, well, no, it's just that if he cleans out super middle, you want to see him challenge. Like, you want to see the best in with the best. We say it all the time. You want to see the best boxers face challenges. I don't want to see him going with like 1-15, 1-20 on opponents, whatever, because it loses that appeal, and you almost then, as you say, lose a bit of interest in someone as good as that because they're just so much better than their competition.
Absolutely, that's it. I was just looking at Sky Bet there just to see if any bets stood out. You know, I like that double chance market on Sky Bet, but Canelo in rounds 7-12, all points, 4-11, 1-6 are points, which I don't think he's going to get Saunders out there early, 8-13. Like, you know, just it's then, but you know, if you do fancy Canelo like we both do, then you're going to be a bit of a toss up, I guess, between the method, really. You know, you've got just below evens to stop Saunders or 6-4 to win on decision, which I think, like you said earlier about Callum Smith, that, you know, Callum Smith looked pretty knackered in their times, and, you know, but he saw the bell, and there was times where I think he's going to go, and you think, actually, no, he did see it out all right in the end, and you think, well, you know, maybe it'll be a similar sort of replay.
I think it has the potential to, because I don't think Canelo, for all his qualities, is a ferocious, aggressive, throw lots of punches type of boxer. He can come forward and he can hurt you, don't get me wrong, but he's a bit more patient and methodical in his approach, which might favour Saunders in the sense of getting to see the final bell, as much as that's favouring someone. Like, it'll give him that time to get on his bike when he needs to, and to maybe take bits off in rounds himself. And like, as long as Canelo's banking the rounds, I think he'll be happy. I'm not saying Saunders is going to be happy to lose or happy to lose rounds, but if he's in a bit of bother, he'll take that respite that's potentially going to be offered.
It's funny because, like, you know, we both basically already on this podcast stated our case and who we think is going to win and how we're going to win it. But, you know, I don't want to make it sound like I'm looking over Billy Joe Saunders. He's a phenomenal fighter, and he's you know, on his day when he's bang on it and he's bang at it, he's a class boxer, and we haven't got many boxers like Billy Joe Saunders in this country who are as good technically as him. Like, and you know, imagine if it was his sort of Fury Klitschko or his Fury Wilder, where it's an absolute, you know, it's the culmination of his career, that standout night where he either boxes the lugs off Canelo or sort of destroys him, and it would just be like an absolute, you know, OMG moment. Canelo is the star in boxing in 2021, no doubt about it, biggest name in the world. And, you know, it's a mammoth task, but if he can win it, then, you know what I mean, if he can pull this out of the bag, sort of a la Klitschko, Fury and Dusseldorf, and boxes loads off, or, you know, Fury Wilder too, then
I would absolutely love it. Honestly, yeah, like I really would. I think the on his day bit is the key, and that's why I'm leaning towards Canelo, and
man,
quite strongly. But yeah, part of me, just to see the reaction and the controversy it would cause, like, I think a lot of, especially the US side of things, would go into an absolute meltdown. And he's almost like the anti-hero, Saunders, and he's like,
yeah,
like, you know, like thinking about the WWF Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin being like, you know, who the corporate side of things absolutely detest and hates. Like, Eddie Hearn's obviously nailed these flags firmly to the Team Canelo side of things, and he, like, in the build-up and what have you, Fury and Saunders have both said what, and you know, he's meant to be a matchroom fighter, and the same with Callum Smith. To be honest, there wasn't like much fanfare around him. Hearn is understandably putting his eggs in the Canelo basket, and it's just that thing of, nothing against Eddie Hearn personally at all, but it's almost like that underdog story, and it just goes against the grain completely. And like, imagine how insufferable Billy Joe Saunders would be if he does pull this off.
He's the one that does it, and it's, you know,
you think Fury was bad, he's going to be 10 times that.
I think Fury's going out there, he'll be shouting them on, you know what I mean? And if he's the one that can be Canelo, it'll be like, you know, I know Mayweather has, but you know what I mean? Canelo 2021 is just, you know, you mentioned like maybe it's the American side, but there's not a lot of love for Billy Joe Saunders in this country. Like, you know, you only have to look down Twitter to people's thoughts on him, like as a human being level, not at boxing level. You know, he's had a lot of run-ins with various different people and things in the past, and unsavory comments, blah blah blah. We're not getting into that, we haven't got time. But do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that people have been upset with Billy Joe Saunders for. So as you say, like, for the sort of the villain to win this would be unbelievable. If he's then, you know, if he dethrones Canelo on Saturday night, it would be like, he would live it up, wouldn't he? He wouldn't hear the end of it ever.
Right. got about 15 minutes left if we're going to stick to our schedule. A little bit longer. We did start a little bit after. But moving on slightly, there's a lot that we haven't discussed because we haven't been on air in God knows however long. But mentioned DAZN a couple of times there. Obviously, the fight is on DAZN this weekend, and we talked a little bit before we started recording about Sky deal potentially coming to the end. Now, I don't know as of today whether that's been confirmed officially by anyone, but there's some very strong rumours coming out last week and maybe even a little bit before about the Matchroom and Sky partnership coming to an end. It's long since been rumoured to be happening, ever since Eddie and Matchroom teamed up with DAZN, to be honest. What do you make of it all? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think there are bits of both? I imagine that's what you lean to, because that's what we always seem to decide on, and we'll try and weigh everything up here at BBB. But
I think
what do you make of it all?
I think it's inevitable, like you said. Once Hearn has got involved with DAZN a few years back now, and like she's putting money into that or taking, you know what I mean? Like, you can't have your wife and your mistress, can you? Do you know what I mean? At some point, if it's going to push come to shove on it, and he's going to have to make that decision. And you know, and just the fact that fights like this and Canelo, Smith, and that, you know, and a few other fights, you know, a couple of years ago, this would have been on Sky Sports, no question. You know, you hadn't even heard of DAZN there, and it was just sort of, you know, it's launched in the UK, and it's just got a bit bigger, chip away, and then it looks, like you said, you know, no one's had any official confirmation that, but it does look like it's going to happen. And I think, you know, the rumours are there, apart from a couple of things, like maybe Joshua and was it Dillian White or something would stay on Sky Sports box office because they've got different deals or something. But again, you know, there was no sign. Well, there was no sign. There was little signs that maybe, you know, you could look into on the broadcast on Saturday, Chisora Parker, that Hearn didn't get interviewed that much post-fight, and Callis Howland was on there, obviously promoting Eubank now, but there's rumours, could he go to Sky? Hearn's been quite quiet this press week over there. You know, and you just do get the sense, and, you know, speaking to people in and around sort of certain fighters and stuff, they're just waiting to hear whether their next fight's going to be on Sky potentially or be on DAZN. Do you know what I mean? And it does seem that there's no smoke without fire in it, and it is happening. But pros and cons.
So yeah, what from a potential Matchroom point of view, what do you think will work well if they do go exclusively with DAZN?
It's tricky because we're, you know, mid-30s, and we're sort of in that, and our friends are mainly still in that generation of, even, you know, we like to just flick a channel. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I've got a smart telly.
You've not been converted yet. I know you said that initially. Like, you've said it with wherever La Liga and that went, and like, I need a channel just, and then I must admit, and I'm not saying this sounds like an absolute cheesy little plug, but I'm not like just saying it because we were trying to push DAZN and get some people clicking on our link. But I found DAZN really easy to use. Like, getting on a smart TV, the app's there, install the app, whatever. It's no different to doing it on my phone. And then what I've been really impressed by is like the stateside stuff, how quick it's on the next day. Spoiler free, you can flick, and I did it with the Golovkin fight a couple of weeks ago, and there was another one I didn't stay up for. Smith Canelo I stayed up for. There was another one I watched, and you can flick literally through the fights and the highlights, the full fight, whatever, the show, the lot. And I've done or tried to do similar on the BT with the UFC. And I don't know if it's a licensing thing, but the UFC, if it's on the early hours of Sunday morning, by the time I wake up on Sunday, like 9-10 o'clock, it's not there, and I've got to wait the rest of the day. So then I'm torn between, like, do I try and avoid the internet and avoid spoilers, or do I just check the results and then decide if I want to watch it? So from like that user friendliness point of view, I've been really impressed with DAZN. Like, to me, it's no different from watching my TV on Netflix or on the iPlayer on BBC or like 4 on demand, whatever. That's becoming more and more commonplace in our house anyway, for how we watch TV normally.
Like Sky, I haven't had a stateside fight now for feels like 30 years. You know what I mean? So, you know, in my life, it used to be record, go to bed, put your phone on airplane mode, come down, don't even look at your phone the next day and watch it type of thing. But like DAZN, you know, I have got a smart telly. It's 2 clicks to load the app. I'm the same view. I find it easy. I know some friends that haven't, and there will be people out there who, like, you know, miss that, who've grown up on a Matchroom and Sky sort of diet of being a boxing fan. And me and you talk about this a lot on here, that you know, that vehicle that Matchroom had with Sky, mainly sort of powered by Sky Sports News, in that bang, bang, 24/7 rolling coverage. Do you know what I mean? Is something you maybe don't get on DAZN. And this is my personal preference, that, like, you know, the older I've got, I don't really pay that much attention to, like, fight week anyway. Do you know what I mean? You know, but I would never think of
Great for a couple of aspiring boxing journalists, and it don't bother with the actual media stuff during the week.
No, that's true. I mean, I won't go home tonight. I probably won't. You know, the last thing on my mind is to, like, load DAZN up and watch, like, an all access show or something, which I'm not really sure why, to be honest. But, like, Sky, you can just, I don't know, I think they might miss that Sky Sports News side of things. I think that's such a clever, not clever, but big vehicle to sort of push it. And BT fallen for that, in my opinion, as well. Like, you know, casual fans become more, in my opinion, become more tuned with Sky fighters, Matchroom fighters, because they've got that access to them and that frequency, like, frequent seeing of them. Whereas BT feels a bit more niche sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Sky Sports, and in particular the Sky Sports News channel, is like a staple of our generation. If you're talking over 10 years ago now, like when we sort of finished in uni, I remember being at uni in House of Four Lads, Sky Sports News was on 90% of the time. Like, even if no one was in the room, the TV was on and Sky Sports News was on, because it was like, it was just background noise. We all wanted to know what was going on with the football. You had your soccer Saturday for the football during the day.
Yeah.
And all the way through that, boxing would be dripped in, it would be fed in, like if Ricky Hatton's boxing abroad, and you get little clips from the way, and you get clips from the press conferences and things, and it just keeps you ticking over, and it keeps it in your mind almost subconsciously. And you look at any of the massive Matchroom events, even if you go on YouTube and search stuff, there's stuff on there from Sky Sports News and that coverage. Whereas I wouldn't dream of coming in the house after work and sticking BT Sports on and just leaving it on in the background. And I don't know whether that is exclusive to people of our sort of generation, maybe a little bit older as well. The newer generation probably do come in and whack YouTube on the smart TV and
maybe
click on IFL or whatever and sit and absorb the content that way. Whereas, as you said, I wouldn't necessarily think to do that. Sometimes I do. I'll go on YouTube and get into a bit of a loop, but it's not. Maybe the social media side of things is going to then have to play a bigger part with DAZN and Matchroom.
I do think, like, you know, I only really speak for, like, our mates. Do you know what I mean? You just, like, when that's the only sort of demographic I'll get to hear about. But, like, you know, and if some of them haven't got a smart TV, or like some of them are watching DAZN on, like, iPads and stuff at this point, and you're like, it's probably not conducive long term for, you know, if you want to watch standard Matchroom show. Like, I don't know. It is tricky, because it feels like a commitment. Whereas, even though you pay for Sky Sports through your TV bill, like, I don't know, say if our mates were in the house on Saturday the 15th of May, they'd watch the 5:30 kickoff. You'd flip over and you put Boachi on. Do you know what I mean? You put the Boachi card on, and it's just like your routine. I'm in the house and I'm going to put the drinks on, got the football, you know, watch the football. I'll have my tea. But it's like, DAZN feels like maybe it's more of a commitment, an investment.
Almost, yeah. It's just that extra little step, which could potentially be a massive deciding factor. I think a lot of it depends on what else DAZN get in the UK. If they can acquire some Premier League football or Champions League or whatever, that's going to drag a massive market across.
Yeah,
I know it's slightly more niche, but I believe they've got the MotoGP motorbikes in Italy. Like, so DAZN Italy shows that, whereas that's on BT Sport over here. And it's little bits like that, where obviously the more complete package they've got, and the longer they can keep the price point reasonable, that's going to potentially bring in a lot of almost like cross-platform, cross-sport links or whatever. So you've got that like Venn diagram almost, right? Or who's specifically tuning in for the boxing at $1.99 a month, because that's what it is at present.
No, that's true.
If it goes up a little bit, but they've got a bit of football on there, I won't mind as much. If the price goes up and it's still just Matchroom boxing, I'm going to then be looking at Matchroom to produce more content and more shows. I think I've had this on Twitter, several other people, like, at the minute, we've got BT TV, so the internet and everything's through BT. So we pay for BT Sport as a sort of extra part of that. It's about 30 odd quid a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Then we pay 33 quid a month on Now TV just for the Sky Sports channels. So there's like 11 on one front, there's 11 channels there, 3 quid a channel, brilliant value, mint.
Yeah.
Think, right, apart from the football, watch the Formula One.
Yeah.
Boxing's on Sky Sports Arena whenever that's on. Hasn't been the greatest, if I'm going to be honest, recently with some of the regular Sky shows. And it's then you're suddenly like, well, actually, it's not as good a value because I'm paying for a lot of channels there that I don't really watch or don't use. And it obviously comes down to that price point, like what people are able to and happy to pay each month without then being asked to fork out on top of it for pay-per-view, which hopefully, Joshua aside, but and Dillian White potentially, like hopefully that does away with the pay-per-view model entirely if they're getting enough subscriptions.
Possibly. Like as I said earlier, you can just that little bit of drip feeding's already gone on. Like Matchroom Spain shows, Matchroom Italy shows used to be on Sky Sports, they're now on DAZN. Do you know what I mean? They've definitely put that market sort of across there already, and maybe the UK is the next one to go for boxing geeks like us. Where I pay the $1.99 I've done since it first launched. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was Campbell Garcia. I watch whatever's on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do watch. I watch Matchroom Spain. I watch out. So like I'll start doing Matchroom Italy the other week and stuff, and it's just, for me, I think great, but I think for, I was out with a few lads last weekend and they were like, "Oh, are you watching the boxing tomorrow, Steve?" I was like, "Mate, of course, Oh, what a card, cracking in it, bit of all Eubank," and I was like, yeah, like couldn't be asked to argue. Had a few drinks and they are.
I honestly, I haven't watched a second of it.
They are the epitome of the people that like, who I think might struggle with the zone because they're like, "Oh, Eubank's like," I just, you know what I mean? They were just loving it, and like there is people out there who I see who's probably routine may well get spoiled on the weekend, and there's that people might think, "Oh, you're talking rubbish," but people who it's just a click of a button who maybe have lost touch with the sport a bit over the years, but who also just like to just whack Sky on a Saturday night, and who maybe I don't know. I think it might turn some people off, but as you say, it's probably the way of the world, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like
I do think, yeah, I think it's definitely getting that way. Like just as I said, from other sort of apps and players and stuff, we watch a lot more stuff on those now than even we did a couple of years ago, and I think. I do understand it's a little bit different with live sport, and there's been a few issues, as in like Amazon Prime streaming the Premier League and the delays and bits like that. So there's definitely work to be done, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it sort of go more this way.
Same, I know, and that leaves the door open as the we're talking from Matchroom's point of view, but it's going to be fascinating to see what Sky do next as well. Like we've again, it's rumours you hear from people that they will keep the hand in boxing, but could spread out maybe with smaller type promoters, or there's obviously been a new big deal signed in the boxing world lately, between Sauerlands and Wasserman as well. So maybe they're going to look for a broadcasting home, a big deal there. Do you know what I mean? But they haven't really got any fighters above you.
Yeah, it all depends on the fighters, doesn't it? Because MTK have had a couple of shows on Sky with the Golden Contract.
Yeah, true.
That potential route. I know they've obviously worked very closely with IFL, and they've sort of have their hand in with every promoter and a lot of the broadcasters. They're on lots of different channels. Well, their fighters are anyway.
ESPN Plus in the States. And
stuff. It'd be interesting to see if Sky go with another exclusive promoter, or if they do open it up and maybe try and showcase a bit of the smaller side of things. But again, ultimately, it's going to come down to money and how much Sky are willing to put in. Because if they do go with a Sauerland, for example, you said, like, in terms of their fighters, they need more UK fighters. It
is fascinating. The thing is, there is fight for them to pick up. Do you know what I mean? They can't do it, and could be a fresh start for them. Like, you know, they could pick up bloody Ruiz and Ariola, or they could have picked up Liam Smith this weekend, who's now on Fights TV. Do you know what I mean? And another online type of station. There is fights out there ready to be picked up. You know what I mean? And even McKenzie's still going, putting some good stuff on Channel 5 and stuff. And you know, it doesn't have to be the end of boxing for Sky Sports' Matchroom League, but it will be interesting to finally get some, hopefully soon, get some confirmation on it and see what the track is. But pros and cons, balanced view. But again, it won't affect me. I'll still probably watch all the boxing I do now, if not more, to be honest with you. But you know, other people, I can see why, you know, not everyone's going to be happy with it. Some people might think it's great. Who knows?
Yeah,
but
I think it's all hypothetical, and it's going to be a case of.
It's been coming. I think it's been coming. Like, you know, inevitably over the years, and maybe this time it will actually happen.
Well, as I say, we'll see what happens, and probably have another podcast just talking about when it actually does and what we expect what has happened rather than what we expect to happen.
6:32, good effort that.
Yeah, we'll wrap that up. Cheers.
Final prediction on Saturday then?
I'm gonna go Canelo, very wide unanimous decision, maybe in the region of a 117, 111.
I'll join you in that. Canelo.
How's that for specific?
Canelo points will do, mate. Nice one, Andrew. Pleasure, lad.
Cheers, mate. Catch you later.
Bye-bye now. Bye.